Welcome and Ayubowan. So today we're going to have a look at the first lesson for the IELTS writing task. Now, since this is the advanced pillar, we're going to start with the academic writing task 1. Now, if you watched the introductory video, you would have understood the basics as to what is this, what would you be coming across, right? But in this one, I'm going to go more in detail of giving you a basic understanding of the academic IELTS writing task 1. Now, what type of question would you get? You would have to explain a visual, or we call it a visualized kind of picture you would have to explain. Now, what kind of visual information would you get to explain? You would get a graph. It could be a line graph, a table, a pie chart, or a bar chart, a process, or a map, or any other diagram. So, the task 1 would focus on explaining or outlining a visually expressed image, right? Now, the next one, what should you write in it? Okay, you need to write everything, where basically you summarize the information you see in your own words. So you have to not pick everything, but you summarize the main things in your own words. You select and report the main features, making comparisons where relevant. Okay, so if you get a bar graph, or if you get a line graph, or even maybe a table or a pie chart, do you write everything that you can see there? No, you don't. You pick and choose what is relevant, and you can pick and choose where you can make comparisons or where you think those are pieces of important information. You pick and choose those, and then you structure your answer. You don't write the same thing as it is, right? You could use some words taken from the visual image, or if not, you just rewrite things in your own words. How much of time should you spend? Well, basically for this task, you must spend 20 minutes. Can I spend more time? Definitely no, because your task 2 needs the remaining 40 minutes. So for task 1, only 20 minutes and nothing more than that. What would actually happen if you spend more time? It would be that you are going to face a problem because you'll run out of time to do a good job for your task 2. So don't go beyond 20 minutes. Can I do it less than in 20 minutes? You could, but that means it's not a very good answer. Okay, so use the given 20 minutes as it is, because that's the time you need to do a good answer for task 1. Now, moving on, how many words should I write? Minimum number of words should be 150. Can I write less than 150? No, you can't. You could, and if you do so, you will lose marks, right? So most of the students who are doing academic require a band score of 7 or above. And if that is the case, you write less than 150, definitely you're not going to get a score of 7. Okay, so a range would be roughly about 160 to 180. Students ask me, Miss, can we write up to 200? Yes, you could, okay. If you want to, that's like the maximum. But roughly 180 words, 175 I think is a good number of words. Why do I tell you don't run up to 200, right? Because the moment you start writing a lot, you are exposing yourself to a lot of more grammar, spelling, punctuation errors. So keep it in this range to about 160 to about 180 words. That is more than sufficient for you to get a good grade. Now, having a look at numbers, are they counted as words? Yes, they are. All numbers are counted as one word. So that means each number that you write, okay, in your body paras, it would be counted as one word. How about hyphenated words? Okay, hyphenated words means ones like son-in-law. This little dash here is a hyphen, okay? So how are hyphenated words counted? Is it 1, 2, 3 or is it just 1? Remember, hyphenated words are counted as one word, okay? Now, looking at the sentences and paragraphs. Can you write in bullet points? No, you can't. Should I write incomplete sentences? Yes, you must. You cannot write bullet points. You cannot write phrases, right? And you cannot write any abbreviations unless they give it to you like milligrams or liters or milliliters or something like that, right? You cannot write any abbreviations like when you're writing in the sentence and, right? You can't write any abbreviations like that, okay? No texting language, no slang language, no informal language, okay? Ideally, there should be 4 paragraphs, okay, which is your introductory para, overall para, and 2 body paras. Don't worry, I will explain to you when we start writing the writing task. We're still just in the overview part, okay? So ideally, you have to have 4 paras. Can I have anything less than 4 paras? No. You could have an intro, overall, and 3 body paras, okay? So the maximum is 5 paras in total. 4 to 5 possible. Can I have 6 paras? No, you can't, okay? So ideally, you have 4 paragraphs. You have the introduction. You have the overview, which I told you as the overall para. Then you have your supporting paragraphs, which I will teach you how to write. You can have about 2 to 3 supporting paras. Remember, there is no conclusion. Now, I see some students asking me, Miss, can we write a conclusion? Lots of sample answers have to sum up to conclude. Well, the actual answer for that is no, right? You cannot have a conclusion in your task 1. You can have a conclusion in task 2, that's a different story. But because we are doing task 1, and I am focusing only on task 1 information in this lesson, you cannot write an introduction. Alright, so moving on, what style or genre should I be using? Style or genre means how you write it, okay? Your style of writing. Can it be informal? No. Can I have slang words? No. Can I have contractions? What are contractions? Examples. I'm doing doesn't. Okay? You cannot have contracted forms, right? You can have I am, does not. So what you can have here is the academic writing style. You could have a bit of semi-formal writing style or the neutral style, okay? You cannot have an informal style of writing. Using dates and tenses. Now, this is another important question which most students ask me, so I thought I'll put it here at the start. The dates are not given to you. No dates are mentioned. Use the present tense. If the dates are in the past, example, now this is 2022. If they're talking about 1985, 1986, 2002, 2008, they are dates in the past, years in the past. If so, you can use the past tense. If there are future dates, example, if it's talking about 2025, 2030, okay, use the future forms. Now, dates spanning both past and future, you also must use both past and future, okay? So, use the past tense as well as the future forms to talk about the two different time frames. A combination of active and passive can be used as required, okay? I'm not saying you have to use this. All I'm saying is that a combination is required. So depending on your task, depending on your sentence structure, you could start writing it. Now, looking at the score out of 100, okay, this has 20 minutes. It's nearly half of the time that you get for your task 2. Task 2, you get 40 minutes. So, the marks are also somewhat doubled for task 2. For task 1, it's roughly around 33% of your entire marking score. Right, now moving on, how are band scores awarded for academic writing? Now, most of you come up and say, oh, Miss, we want a 4, we want a 5, we want a 6. Some of you actually tell me, Miss, I have 6.5, but I just need a 7, it's only 0.5, right? It's not just a 0.5. That 0.5 is a big jump, okay? It requires you to do lots of things to get that 6.5 to a 7. How do you know what you're supposed to do? I'll teach you that in a bit, but before that, you need to have a look at your marking criteria. Now, your marking criteria is marked on 4 main criterias. The first one, we call it TA, Task Achievement. Second one, we say CC, Coherence and Cohesion. Third one, we say LR, Lexical Resource. Third one, we actually call it GR, but it's actually grammatical range and accuracy. So let's have a look at what these individual marking criteria mean. Now, task achievement means that obviously you have the necessary word count. Apart from that, you provide the relevant information. You provide accurate data along with the specific structure of the intro, overview and the body paras. 2. Coherence and cohesion. That is the link. Now, when you read something, right, you feel, there is a flow in it. You have the start, then you have the middle, then you have the end. It's the same in any storybook. So, for an example, if we read something, even a story, right? So, let's take any story, the Goldilocks and Three Bears, right? You have a sequence. You have the start. Once upon a time, there was a little girl and who was living in the woods. You have a story, a sequence. Then she sat on the first big bed, the next bed, and the small bed. You all of a sudden don't say, once upon a time, there was a little girl, and then all of a sudden the bears come in and then she sits, and that you don't have it all over the place. There is a nice sequence. The same way in your writing task 1, you must have the relevant sequence. You have a nice intro, you have the overview, and then you have the body paras. Now, when you're doing so, not just the paragraphs, but the sentences also in each para must link together well. So, you need to use linking devices, right? Some of them call them cohesive devices, linking devices, signposting, right? You should use words like and, but, because, however, okay? Linking words. Now, you should also be able to paraphrase, right? Paraphrasing means rewriting the sentence or sentences in your own words, right? Now, for task 1, for an example, they give you the question, okay? When they give you the question, you should obviously include it in your introduction, but you don't write the same thing, okay? I'll teach you when we are doing the lesson, so you don't have to worry about it. But what you need to remember is that we don't write the same thing as it is. We rewrite it using our own words. The next one, lexical resource. Lexical resource, in other words, means vocabulary. Okay? Let me just write it down here. LR or lexical resource is vocabulary. Now, we're looking at two things here. When you're using vocabulary, we're looking at the range as well as the accuracy. Okay? Are you using the same word over and over again, or are you using a range of words? When you are doing that, how accurate are you in using those words? Apart from that, collocations. Now, what are collocations? Words that go together. You have noun collocations, you have verb collocations, right? Next one, spellings, right? So you need to make sure that if you are doing the paper-based IELTS exam, your handwriting is clear so that the reader can understand the spelling well. So you don't write things like this. Can you read anything? No. Can we find out if your spelling is right? No. Okay, so you must write clearly. Now, if you're doing the computer-based IELTS, then that handwriting problem is not there, but still the spelling should be accurate. So, don't we get a spell check like on Word for the exam? No, you don't, okay? There's no spell check option. It's just a blank document and you will type up your answer. So accuracy, I spoke about it. You should use it properly, okay? So a little girl, a small girl, a tiny girl, which one is right? Okay. Sometimes you can find similar words for the same word, but you can't use it everywhere. So that accuracy is important. Next one, grammatical range and accuracy. So now here, the sentence structure is important. Grammar, range and accuracy is important. Now, when I say range, you can understand. Let me take a small example. I have a cat. Okay. The cat likes to eat fish, right? The cat likes to drink milk. Okay, so these sentences are simple sentences, right? There is one subject, one verb, a completed thought. It is a simple sentence. But you can start making it a bit, not complex, I wouldn't say complex, but you could start working on it to make it a bit better. Example, let me write it in a different color. I have a cat. It likes to eat fish and drink milk. So, what are you doing? You're trying to make it a bit better, okay? You're using pronouns, you're using conjunctions and trying to improve on your sentence a bit better. But here, when we say range, we're looking at complex sentence structures. So, you should be able to write simple for sure accurately, as well as complex sentence structures if you're looking at a 7 above. So that depends on what kind of score you're looking at. Some of you need 7 above, some of you need 6.5, 5.5. That depends on what your level is and what is required by you to migrate. Okay? So there are 3 types of sentences. We have simple sentences, we have compound sentences, as well as complex sentences. So, I'm not going to do a complete lesson on simple, complex and compound sentences, right? Because we've done sentence structures when we were doing our basic grammar lesson. But for the ones who have not gone through it, I'm just going to do a very quick one, okay? Let's have a look at an example. Anne opened the window. Who opened it? Anne is the subject. What did she do? What is her action? Opened, right? The window. What did she open? The window is the object. So here you have a subject, you have a verb, and it is a completed thought. So if you have a subject, a verb, and a completed thought, we call these sentences a simple sentence. You could have a compound subject or a compound verb. Example, Anne and Maya opened the window. Okay? So this is a simple sentence structure. We could also write a compound sentence structure. Now what you need to remember, one more point in the simple one, is that this is a independent clause. Independent clause means it has nothing to depend on, right? It has a complete thought and it's a completed idea, right? Now when we have a look at a compound sentence, when it comes to this compound sentence style, right, it means that you should be using a coordinating conjunction to combine the ideas, and it is two or more simple sentences put together. Okay, so let's have a look at an example. Anne opened the door and went outside. Now, by using a coordinating conjunction, you can put them together and say, Anne opened the door and went outside. Okay, so Anne opened the door again has a subject verb and is an independent clause. And went outside, again it is an independent clause. So you use the coordinating conjunction and you could combine these two ideas together and say, Anne opened the door and went outside. So there you're putting two simple sentences together using a coordinating conjunction. Here as well, still there are two independent clauses put together. They have a completed thought or a meaning. Let's have a look at a complex sentence structure. So in a complex sentence structure, you have an independent clause plus a dependent clause. Let me show you an example. When she won, everyone cheered. Right? Now, if you just don't take this part, okay? If you just take the first bit, when she won alone, does it make a sense to you? No. Is it a complete thought? No. Everyone cheered? Yes. Who cheered? Everyone. What did they do? Cheer. So it has a subject and a verb. There's a completed thought. Not every sentence needs an object. So here, right, when she won is a dependent clause. Without the independent clause, this alone does not make any sense. When she won is a dependent clause, whereas everyone cheered is the independent clause. Now this is a bit of grammar that I did, but I want you to understand when I say range, what does it mean? Now apart from this, range also means using different tenses. Remember, long action, short action, past continuous, simple past tense. I was washing my car when she knocked at the gate. You know, that is also showing that you understand and there is a range of different grammar patterns in one sentence, right? I was washing my car when she knocked at the gate, or when she knocked at the door, right? So was, washing, knocked, again two different tenses but used accurately in one sentence. So when you're doing these different types of sentences, when you're using these different types of grammar tenses together, it must also be accurate. Apart from that, tenses, I've already done with you those tenses. It's important for you to use it accurately. The sentence structure should be accurate. That means, example, I love you, subject, verb, object. Okay, so you don't say you love I. For an example, that specific structure must be there. Punctuation, that means capital letters, full stop, comma, colon, semicolon. Apart from that, I've done punctuation for you at the beginner level. We don't need all the other types. If you know your capital letters, where to use them, comma, full stop, colon, semicolon, that is more than enough. Okay, so if you see here for an example, right, when she won, comma, everyone cheered. So you need to know where to use the commas, right? Now, if you see here, if you see here, every marking criteria has an equal percentage. TA 25%, CC 25%, LR 25%, and GR also has 25%. Alright, now here is the most important one. This is publicly available, right? And it's called the band descriptors. It's a public version and that's why it's been extracted. Now, if you see here, you can have a look at the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What do I need to get? Okay, if I have a 6, what do I have, or what are the skills that I have? What else do I need to improve? Right, so moving on, here we have the band descriptor if you need to get a band score of 9, right? Now, some of you might think, oh my God, that is impossible. That is not impossible, right? I've had students getting 9 and it is possible, but it requires you a lot of practice and hard work. Now, 9 means that you fully satisfy, right, all the requirements. That means you have a proper answer, you've answered all the questions, right? That means you've got the necessary trends and you've summarized everything. You've had a look at the comparisons carefully, right? You've got the overview, you've got the intro, you've got a clearly, fully developed answer. So when we have a look at coherence and cohesion, right, it means that you've got a good answer which is linked carefully, right? Nicely used linking devices, and you fully manage paraphrasing and the paragraphs clearly knit and put together. Lexical resource, you use a range of vocabulary, right? And with a natural and sophisticated control of the language, okay? And there are fairly minor errors, right? But they are only considered as slips. How do you know it's a slip? Examiners know that it is a slip. Grammatical range and accuracy here. You use a wide range of structures and you're fully flexible to use different sentence structures and patterns using variety of simple, compound, complex sentences, right? All right. When we have a look at 8, this covers all requirements of the task and you present and highlight and illustrate the key features. Alright, so it means you still understand. It's sometimes not fully developed, but you've got the necessary highlights and you've illustrated the key points. Coherence and cohesion, you've organized the information logically, right? And paragraphing is done sufficiently. Lexical resource, yes, you are fluent in using language or rather vocabulary, right? And you do use some uncommon lexical items. Could be some errors time to time, right? You do use collocations well. And here and there could be spelling errors. In terms of grammar, you use a wide range of structures when it comes to 8. The majority, not everything, but majority means 75% above at least, right? Majority of your sentences are error-free. You occasionally make slight errors which are inappropriate, but very rarely, I would say. Then comes the 7. This is the most prominent one. Okay. This is what most of the students who are doing academic want, right? Now here you cover the requirements of the task. Now I don't want you to go through GT, but it's there. That's why I have put it. But this part is not for the academic students, right? It is for the general students, okay? Here, if you're doing academic, you have a clear overview. You've written the overview. You've had a look at the main trends and if there are any differences also, you've identified those. You also present and highlight and illustrate on the key features, right? A bit fully extended, right? In terms of coherence and cohesion, you logically organize the information and you can see that there is clear progression throughout and you use a range of cohesive devices, right? It should, look at this, appropriately, although there may be some under or overuse. So when we teach you linking words, what happens is most students memorize this, okay, and they start using it everywhere. So sometimes it's overused and the others who don't know it, they underuse it, okay. So although here it could be that sometimes it's overused or underused. Cohesive devices are linking words again. Lexical resource is your vocabulary and here you have a sufficient, right? You have a sufficient vocab with you which you flexibly use when you're writing, right? You use less common lexical items with some awareness, okay? And you do understand collocation. Though you may have some occasional errors in word choice and spelling. So when you're getting a 7, it doesn't mean that your spellings are all correct and all of that. There are still a few spelling errors. Now what students ask me is, Miss, if I have 5 spelling errors, will that be a 6 or 7? That I cannot tell, okay? It depends on your writing. So spelling errors is it a slip, or is it purposefully that you don't understand, right? And how many, we don't give it according to how many, 5 spelling errors, 10 spelling errors. It's not like that, okay? So it depends as an overall in your writing task. Grammatical range, you use a variety of complex. Now this is why I taught you what complex sentence structures are before we got to this part, okay? Because some of you might not have gone through the beginner level. That's why I quickly gave you an insight, okay? So here you use a variety of complex sentences, and these ones are frequently error-free. You have a good control over your sentences and punctuation, but you could make a few errors, okay? 7 to 8 is a big jump. Now, some of you ask, oh, Miss, I have a 7.5. What does that mean? Each 0.5, so say you have a 6.5, you have a 7.5. 7.5 means you have achieved all of 7 and some of 8. Some positive features of 8. If you have a 6.5, it means you have achieved all of 6 and some positive features of 7, right? So, this is the 6. Now, you will understand, the ones who always think, oh, it's only 0.5, you will understand that from a 6 to a 7 is a big jump, or 6.5 to a 7 is still a big jump. Now here, again, you address the requirements of the task. That is fine. This bit we don't need, right? But you present a clear overview and you have information and you adequately have. Now, if you come to 7, right, you clearly present and highlight key features. But when it is a 6, you adequately highlight. That means it's not so clear and precise, but fairly, adequately, you've highlighted the key features, right? And there may be some details which are irrelevant as well. Now here we don't have irrelevant points, but when you come to 6, there are irrelevant points. So you can see now what is that big jump that I'm talking about. Then we have coherence and cohesion. Here we arrange the information and the ideas with again clear progression. You use cohesive devices effectively, right? But this is where it may be faulty or mechanical. Mechanical means once we teach you the words, just some students start using it, okay? So if you do it like that or you're not doing it properly, then you get a 6, right? May not always use referencing clearly or appropriately. Referencing means when you want to refer back to something, you might not be using that clearly. So the ideas go here and there, okay? So like, you know, I have a cat, it means the cat. So you're referring back to the cat. If you don't do it properly in the proper sequence, then your ideas go here and there. That is what it is talking about. Then of course we have the LR, Lexical Resource, which is your vocabulary. Now here you use an adequate range, but when you came to your 7, you're using a sufficient range. Here it's fair use, adequate range, right? You attempt. Here, what? You are using. Here, you are trying to use, attempting to use them with some inaccuracy. There are spelling errors, right? But it does not impede, means it does not tarnish what you want to actually express. So it is fine. Grammatical range and accuracy. So here you use simple and complex. Now that is why I say 6 to a 7 is a big jump. 7, you are using a variety of complex sentences. However, when it comes to 6, you're using a mix of simple and complex, right? You do make some errors, right? And punctuation, but rarely, very, very rarely only it will reduce the communication. If not, it is fine. So now you understand, if you get a 6 or a 6.5, it is not so easy to jump to a 7, especially when you take grammar, right? Simple and complex, and then writing a range of complex is a big jump. So you need to be able to use the language well. All right, so when we have a look at 5, now some students and some professions require you to get 5, 5.56. So I'll have a look at 5 as well, right? So moving on, we'll have a look at band descriptor 5 as well, right? I'll be going through all anyway, but 5 I think is important to discuss again because some professions require 5, 5.5, like if you're going as a caregiver, sometimes 4.5. Nurses, of course, need a 7. So different jobs require, or even different universities require different levels of IELTS, right? Though I'm telling you these jobs, please make sure you check. Okay, this is what I know from my experience, but you need to check properly with your appropriate bodies or your agents as to what kind of score you need, right? Now, 5 generally addresses the task, right? And the format may be inappropriate. It's not very good, the format. Maybe you don't have the necessary structure. Now again, we don't need GT, but for A, which is academic, recounts detail mechanically with no clear overview. So you do it, but it's very like mechanical and you don't have a clear overview, or rather no proper overview, right? And sometimes you don't even have data to support what you're saying. Data means most pie charts, not most actually, all. Pie charts, bar chart, line graphs, they have data. So you need to use those numbers in your body paras. Maybe not a process, but when it comes to tables, bar chart, pie chart, line graph, you must be using those numbers in your body para. So here it shows that you may be not using that properly. Coherence and cohesion, again, some organization is there, but poor overall progression. You make inadequate or inaccurate use of cohesive devices, right? And basically your referencing and all is poor, right? When it comes to LR, okay, poor means you lack it, not bad, but you lack it. Right, when we have a look at the lexical resource, right, here you use a limited range of vocab, right? And this is minimally adequate. Minimal means it's very little, but it's adequate a little, right? You make noticeable errors. Noticeable means it's a bit big, right? So it's not unknowingly, you don't know actually the spelling, and therefore it is noticeable. And your word formation causes it difficult for the reader to understand what you're trying to communicate. When you come to the grammar, you use a limited range of structures. You attempt to use complex, right? But they are less accurate, okay, than the simple sentences. But simple sentences are fairly okay. Here you make frequent grammar errors and punctuation may be faulty and can cause some difficulty for the reader. Looking at 4, right? Attempts to address the task but does not cover all features. Now, can you see how important it is for you to cover all the features? The moment you don't, it starts dropping one by one. Okay? GT we don't want. May confuse key features. So when you're writing it, you have to really understand before you start writing. Okay? You can't just start writing and doing whatever you want in the task. You have to clearly read it, understand, plan, and then start writing. Okay? And parts are unclear, it's irrelevant, and it's repetitive or even inaccurate. When it comes to coherence and cohesion, you present information and ideas, but they are not arranged properly. There is no clear progression and only basic cohesive devices are used, and that also may be inaccurate or repetitive. Next, we are going to have a look at the lexical resource, which is the vocab. You use basic words which may be repetitive and sometimes even inappropriate. You have a limited control over your word formation and spelling, and this causes strain. Strain means we can't understand when we're trying to understand. It's a bit stressful for the reader. Grammar, again, you use very limited features, okay? Some structures are accurate, but the errors are quite predominant, means it's quite prominent, okay? And often faulty in terms of punctuation also. All right. So 3, 2, 1, 0 is here. 0, of course, you know what it is. Does not attend, does not attempt in any way. So even if you write 2, 3 words, right, we try to have a look at the positive side of your writing, okay? So here, 3 means you fail to address the task. Basically, you don't address it. You've not understood it. You have only limited ideas. You don't organize your structures. You use very limited range of cohesive devices, and those also don't really create that logical structure or the link between sentences or paragraphs. You use a limited range of words and expressions, right? Limited control of word formation and also spelling, and errors really make it bad. That means we can't distort the meaning, means the message means we can't really understand what you're trying to tell. You here attempt some sentence forms, but grammar, punctuation errors are a lot. You answer but barely related to the task. You have very little control of organization, extremely limited range of vocab, okay, and you cannot use sentence forms except for the memorized ones. Because sometimes some students try to memorize and go and put something, then we obviously understand that the student doesn't know but has memorized some things from here and there. 1 means you answer is completely unrelated. You fail to communicate the message. You use only isolated words and you cannot use sentence forms at all. Okay. So I personally have never come across students who've got 1, 2, 3, but I have come across students who've got 4, 5, 6, 7 and even 9, right? Or anything like a 4.5, 5.5, those kind of scores, right? All right. So, how can I calculate my score? Now, you don't obviously calculate it, so you don't need to worry about it, but how would you be given a score? Now, say for an example, TA, you get 6. Okay. CC, you get 6. LR, you get 6. GR, you get 6. So, you add all of this up and you divide it by 4. So, 24 divided by 4, you get 6.0. Right? So, what you should understand is you could get anything for this, right? You could get a 5.5, 6, 6, 5.5, right? Whatever you get, they add it up and they divide it by 4, right? So, this is just an easy example I did, but actually in reality, you would say that someone gets 6.5, 6, 6, 6, right? Then they add it up and divide it by 4, right? All right. Do I need to compare and contrast data in each body paragraph? Now, students ask me this question quite commonly. That's why I've put it up here. Well, the answer is this should be done only where relevant. If you overdo it, the report may look very confusing. So plan before you write, okay? So in each one, you don't compare and contrast in each body one. You could do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't advise it for everyone, okay? Because if you overdo it, it could look confusing and the reader might not be able to understand what you're trying to explain. So what I advise my students is plan before you read, okay? For each pictorial illustration, okay, have a look at it first. Think for yourself, should I put the similarities together and the differences in one, or should I just explain the different genders like male first and female then? You have to understand how you're going to break it down. There is no answer saying this is the only way, okay? You have to look at it, think what is the most appropriate way, what is the best way that the reader will understand my answer. Based on that, you have to break down your body paras. So my advice is plan before you actually write anything, okay? Next one, do I get a penalty for writing under the word count? I did tell you this as well before. Yes, you will get a lower score if you do not meet the minimum word count of 150. Then some students start writing 250. Do you get penalized? Yes. Stick to the word count that I put up before. You're way on the safe zone then. Do I get a penalty for writing too much? Right? Do I get a penalty for writing under the word count? Well, yes. Okay. As I told you before, yes. Okay. You will get a lower score for not completing the task and not meeting, which is 150. Then, of course, student starts writing about 250, 300 words. Will you be penalized? It's not a matter of being penalized. It's a matter of you going to run out of time, right? So, please don't exceed the time and don't expose yourself. You can see how much weight is given for grammar, lexis, and all of these things. So, don't write too much, okay? Keep it within the word count, right? There is no upper limit set actually in IELTS, right? We just give the students a rough range and say stick to that, okay? But it's not that you will get penalized and all of that, right? But obviously if you write 250, you will get penalized in the sense you lose marks because you will not be able to write your task 2 properly. So stick to the word range that I gave you, and that should be good enough for you to get a 7 or above, okay? Are there any other things which would affect my score? Now, these are questions that you'll have, right? Well, partially attempted answer. If you fail to answer the whole question, you will not get a score above 5. That's the usual norm, right? So you have to understand that fully answering your question is important to push it up above 5.0. Illegible handwriting. So handwriting that you can't read. If the examiner has trouble reading your handwriting, your band can be seriously affected. It's not that the examiner just wants to penalize you, it's that the examiner can't read. Okay? And if an examiner can't read, we can't really give you a score. So you have to make sure that you write clearly. Memorized answers? It could result in 0. Please do not memorize answers, phrases and things like that, okay? Some of you do memorize linking words, right? That's okay, but you need to know where to use it. Once you memorize it, the problem is you don't know where to use it and you start using it haphazardly. So memorizing could be problematic, okay? All right. Now the next question, what is the difference between paper-based writing and the computer-based writing? Okay. Now the paper-based one, actually the answer needs to be written on the exam paper itself and your handwriting is important. Whereas in the computer-based one, the answer needs to be typed in, so the handwriting problem does not come into place. The exam is completed on the same day for both paper-based and computer-based formats, right? So usually they have it on the same day, okay? Usually, right? But here and there now with all the COVID and all these things happening, things could change, right? But usually the norm is that it happens on the same day, and this is how it would look like an answer sheet, okay? So writing task 1, and then you have your candidate name, number, and all of these things that you need to complete, right? And here you can see examiner 1, examiner 2. It's been double marked before your marks are being released. Okay, so that's a bit of background to the marking as well. All right, so I think this has given you a lot of insight before we start writing task 1, okay? Because once we start it, then of course you'll be having all of these questions. So before we start it, I thought I'll give you an introduction, right? And explain to you what the marking criteria is going to be, right? What you should focus on and what kind of questions are actually there in your mind. I've answered a few. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop it up in the comments section. So with that, we come to the end of the lesson. IELTS Academic Writing Task 1.